Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing and check out our Patreon for more. Enjoy the video. Ben stood in front of the full-length mirror, admiring the way the soft fabric of the dress draped over his slender frame. The delicate floral pattern and the gentle swish of the skirt made him feel graceful and beautiful, a stark contrast to the masculine clothes he wore every day. He smoothed his hands over the bodice of the silky material against his skin. For months, he had been secretly trying on dresses in the privacy of his bedroom, exploring a side of himself he had never dared to acknowledge before. Each time he slipped into a dress, a sense of joy and comfort washed over him, as if he was finally allowing his true self to shine through. Ben twirled slowly, watching the skirt billow out around his legs. He imagined himself walking into his cousin's wedding, head held high, radiating confidence in a stunning dress. The thought both thrilled and terrified him. A knock at the door startled him out of his reverie. "Ben, you in there?" It was Jamie, his best friend since childhood. Panicking, Ben frantically began to remove the dress. "Just a minute," he called out, his voice shaking slightly. He had just managed to pull on his jeans and t-shirt when Jamie burst into the room, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I have the best idea for your cousin's wedding!" Ben's heart raced as he tried to act casual, praying she wouldn't notice the dress peeking out from under his bed. "Oh yeah? What's that?" Jamie plopped down on the bed, oblivious to the garment beneath her. "I was thinking, why don't we go shopping for a new outfit? Something that will really make you stand out." Ben's palms grew sweaty at the thought. "I don't know, Jamie. I'm not really into shopping." She rolled her eyes. "Come on, it'll be fun. Plus, I know you've been wanting to express yourself more lately." Ben's eyes widened. Did she know his secret? He swallowed hard, trying to gauge her reaction. "What do you mean?" Jamie leaned forward, her expression softening. "Ben, I've known you forever. I can tell when something's on your mind." She placed a hand on his knee, her gaze earnest. "You can talk to me, about anything." Tears pricked at the corners of Ben's eyes. He had carried this secret for so long, afraid of what others might think. But looking into Jamie's caring face, he knew he could trust her. With a shaky breath, he reached under the bed and pulled out the dress. I want to wear this to the wedding," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Jamie's eyes widened as she took in the delicate fabric and beautiful design. A slow smile spread across her face. "Ben, it's perfect," she breathed. Relief washed over him like a warm hug. "You really think so?" She nodded enthusiastically. "Absolutely. You're going to look amazing." Ben clutched the dress to his chest, a grin stretching from ear to ear. "Thank you, Jamie," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Jamie hopped off the bed, grabbing his hand and pulling him towards the door. "Come on, let's go shopping. We need to find the perfect accessories to go with that dress." As they walked out into the sunlit street, Ben felt as if a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine a future where he could freely express his true self, starting with his cousin's wedding. They spent hours browsing through shops, carefully selecting a pair of heels, a clutch purse, and some delicate jewelry to complement the dress. With each item, Ben's excitement grew. He could hardly believe this was really happening. As the sun began to set, they made their way back to Ben's house, arms laden with shopping bags. But as they approached the front door, Ben's steps faltered. Reality came crashing down around him as he remembered the one obstacle still standing in his way: his parents. Jamie seemed to sense his hesitation. She gave his hand a reassuring squeeze. "It's going to be okay, Ben. Your parents love you. They'll understand." He wished he could believe her, but deep down, he wasn't so sure. His parents had always been traditional, with clear expectations of how a young man should dress and behave. The thought of disappointing them, of seeing confusion or worse, disgust in their eyes, made his stomach churn. Seeing the conflict on his face, Jamie pulled him into a tight hug. Hey, no matter what happens, I'm here for you, she said fiercely. Always. Ben clung to her, drawing strength from her unwavering support. Thanks, Jamie, he whispered. I don't think I could do this without you. Taking a deep breath, Ben squared his shoulders and opened the front door. It was now or never. His parents were in the living room, watching TV. They looked up as he entered, their eyes immediately drawn to the shopping bags in his hands. What's all this? His mother asked, a note of suspicion in her voice. Ben's mouth went dry. He could feel his courage wavering, but one glance at Jamie's encouraging nod spurred him on. With trembling hands, he reached into one of the bags and pulled out the dress. The soft fabric unfurled gracefully, the delicate floral pattern even more beautiful in the warm glow of the living room. Mom, Dad, he began, his voice shaking. There's something I need to tell you. As he poured out his heart, tears streaming down his face, an incredible thing happened. His parents listened, really listened, their expressions shifting from shock to understanding to love. When he finished, his mother stood and pulled him into a fierce embrace. Oh, Ben, she murmured, stroking his hair. We love you no matter what. All we want is for you to be happy. His father joined the hug, his strong arms enveloping them both. Your mother's right, son. You'll always have our support, no matter what you wear or who you are. Ben sobbed into their shoulders, overwhelmed with relief and love. He had spent so long living in fear, convinced that his truth would tear his family apart. But here they were, holding him tight, accepting him fully. After a long moment, they pulled apart, wiping away tears. His mother cupped his face in her hands, smiling warmly. Now, let's see this dress on you, shall we? With Jamie's help, Ben slipped into the dress, marveling at the way it hugged his curves and swished around his ankles. He stepped out into the living room, feeling like a butterfly emerging from a cocoon. His parents' eyes widened, their faces breaking into proud grins. You look beautiful, son, his father said, his voice gruff with emotion. Absolutely stunning, his mother agreed, clasping her hands together. Ben beamed, twirling in a circle. For the first time in his life, he felt truly seen, truly loved for who he was. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, the perfect day for a celebration of love. Ben stood in front of the mirror, his heart racing with excitement and nervousness as he slipped into the beautiful dress he had chosen. The delicate floral pattern seemed to come alive in the sunlight streaming through the window, and the soft fabric hugged his curves in all the right places. Jamie stood behind him, her eyes shining with pride as she helped him with the final touches. She had spent hours doing his makeup, transforming his face into a work of art with subtle hints of color and a flawless complexion. When she finished, Ben hardly recognized himself. He looked like a princess straight out of a fairy tale. You look absolutely gorgeous, Jamie said, her voice thick with emotion. Everyone's going to be blown away. Ben took a deep breath, trying to calm the butterflies in his stomach. He had never felt more vulnerable, more exposed than he did at that moment. But beneath the nerves, there was a sense of exhilaration, of finally being true to himself. They arrived at the wedding venue, a beautiful garden filled with fragrant flowers and lush greenery. As they made their way to the ceremony area, Ben could feel eyes on him from every direction. Whispers floated through the air, people trying to figure out who this stunning mystery girl was. Who's that? He heard someone ask. I don't remember seeing her before. She's beautiful, another voice chimed in. Do you think she's a model or something? Ben ducked his head, a blush rising to his cheeks. He wasn't used to this kind of attention, especially not while dressed like a woman. But Jamie just squeezed his hand reassuringly, guiding him forward. They took their seats just as the ceremony began. Ben watched as his cousin walked down the aisle, radiant in her white gown. He felt a pang of envy mixed with admiration. He wondered if he would ever have the courage to walk down the aisle himself someday, dressed in the clothes that made him feel most alive. As the ceremony progressed, Ben could feel the curious glances continue to fall on him. He tried to focus on the words being spoken, on the love and commitment being celebrated, but it was hard to ignore the whispers and pointed looks. Finally, the ceremony ended and the guests began to mingle. Ben stood off to the side, feeling suddenly awkward and out of place. He wasn't sure how to navigate this new world he found himself in. Just then, his cousin approached, her face lit up with joy. "Ben?" she asked, her eyes widening in surprise. "Is that really you?" Ben swallowed hard, nodding. "Yeah, it's me," he said softly. His cousin threw her arms around him, hugging him tight. "You look incredible," she said sincerely. "I'm so proud of you for being true to yourself." Tears pricked at the corners of Ben's eyes. He had been so worried about how his family would react, but his cousin's acceptance meant the world to him. As the reception got underway, more and more people began to approach Ben, curious about the stunning girl in the floral dress. At first, he tried to deflect their questions, not wanting to draw too much attention to himself. But as the night wore on, he found himself growing more comfortable, more confident in his own skin.
"So, what's your name?"
A handsome groomsman asked, sidling up to him at the bar. Ben hesitated for a moment before answering. "It's Ben," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The groomsman's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Ben, as in the groom's cousin Ben?" Ben nodded, bracing himself for a negative reaction. But to his surprise, the groomsman just grinned. "Well, damn," he said appreciatively. "I never would have guessed. You make a beautiful woman, Ben." Ben blushed, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. It was one thing to be accepted by his family, but to have a complete stranger compliment him like that? It was a whole new level of validation. As the night went on, more and more people began to put two and two together. Ben could hear the whispers spreading like wildfire, people realizing that the stunning mystery girl was actually the groom's cousin. Some people seemed confused, unsure how to react. Others were more openly supportive, coming up to Ben and telling him how brave and beautiful he was. And of course, there were a few who seemed less than thrilled, shooting him disapproving looks or muttering under their breath. But Ben tried not to let the negative reactions get to him. He focused on the love and acceptance he felt from those closest to him, his parents, his cousin, and of course, Jamie, who never left his side. As the reception began to wind down, Ben found himself on the dance floor, swaying to a slow song with Jamie. She rested her head on his shoulder, a contented smile on her face. "I'm so proud of you, Ben," she murmured. "You're the bravest person I know." Ben hugged her tighter, feeling a lump form in his throat. "I couldn't have done it without you," he said honestly. "Thank you for always being there for me." They swayed in silence for a moment, lost in their own thoughts. Then Jamie pulled back, a mischievous glint in her eye. "So, did you see the way that groomsman was looking at you earlier?" she teased. "I think someone has a crush." Ben laughed, shaking his head. "Stop it," he said, but he couldn't help the way his heart fluttered at the thought. As the song ended, Ben and Jamie made their way off the dance floor, hand in hand. They passed Ben's parents, who were chatting with some relatives. His mother caught his eye, giving him a warm smile and a nod of approval. Ben felt a rush of love. In that moment, surrounded by the people who loved and accepted him for who he truly was, he felt like he could take on the world. They stepped out into the cool night air, the stars twinkling overhead. Ben took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace and contentment settle over him. "Thank you for coming with me tonight," he said to Jamie, squeezing her hand. "I don't think I could have done this without you by my side." Jamie grinned, bumping her shoulder against his. "Hey, what are best friends for?" she said lightly. "Besides, I wouldn't have missed this for the world. Seeing you shine like that, being true to yourself, it was incredible." Ben smiled, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. He knew that the journey ahead would be full of ups and downs, that there would be moments of doubt and fear. But he also knew that with Jamie by his side, with the love and support of his family, he could face anything. They walked in comfortable silence for a while, the music from the reception fading into the background. Then Jamie spoke up, her voice soft and thoughtful. "You know, I was thinking," she said hesitantly, maybe this doesn't have to be a one-time thing. Maybe you could start dressing like this more often, if it makes you happy." Ben's steps faltered, his heart skipping a beat. The thought had crossed his mind before, but he had always been too afraid to voice it out loud. "You really think so?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Jamie nodded, her expression serious. "Ben, life's too short to hide who you really are," she said gently. "If wearing dresses and makeup makes you feel like your true self, then you should embrace that. Don't let anyone else's opinions hold you back." Ben swallowed hard, feeling tears prick at the corners of his eyes. He had spent so long living in fear, convinced that he had to hide this part of himself away. But hearing Jamie's words, seeing the love and acceptance shining in her eyes, he felt a flicker of hope ignite in his chest. I think I'd like that," he said softly, a small smile tugging at his lips. "It might take some time, but I want to start living as my true self. No more hiding." Jamie beamed, throwing her arms around him in a tight hug. "I'm so proud of you," she said fiercely, "and I'll be with you every step of the way. No matter what anyone else says or thinks, you'll always have me in your corner." Ben hugged her back, feeling a rush of love and gratitude wash over him. He knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy, that there would be challenges and obstacles to overcome. But with Jamie by his side, with the love and support of his family, he felt like he could take on the world. They continued walking, the night air cool and refreshing against their skin. Ben's mind was racing with possibilities, with the endless potential that lay ahead. He knew that there would be moments of doubt and fear, that not everyone would be as accepting as his family had been tonight. But he also knew that he had something precious, something worth fighting for. He had the courage to be true to himself, to live life on his own terms. And with that knowledge, he felt like he could face anything the world might throw his way. As they approached Jamie's house, she turned to him, a mischievous glint in her eye. "So, same time next week?" she asked, grinning. "I'm thinking we hit the mall, find you some more gorgeous dresses to add to your collection." Ben laughed, feeling a rush of excitement and anticipation. "Definitely," he said, his voice strong and sure. "I can't wait." They hugged one last time, Jamie's words echoing in Ben's mind as he made his way home. He knew that the journey ahead would be full of twists and turns, of ups and downs. But for the first time in his life, he felt truly alive, truly himself. And as he walked into his bedroom, his eyes falling on the beautiful dress hanging in his closet, he knew that he was ready to face whatever the future might bring, one fabulous outfit at a time. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out Patreon for a lot more content and early access to YouTube videos.